it's Miss Kristin from Groveport Town Hall, and today is ArtVentures with Miss Kristin. And since it's Monday, I thought today we could do a Messy Monday session. And before we get started, I need to tell you a quick little story. So I'm up here in my production room getting ready to make my messy video for you. And guess what I did? Made a mess. Oh yeah. So one of the ingredients that we need for today's craft is water, and I totally knocked it over with my arm. So my pants are soaking wet. I just had to clean up all the water off the table here. Some of the supplies that I brought got all wet. So when I tell you guys every week that you want to make sure that you get permission, make sure you get permission. Yeah, because if you make a mess like I did, who knows, you might get in trouble. And then what the other thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you cover the table. Yeah, cover the table. And you might want to wear an apron or a bib like this, because like I said, I made a mess already. So today what we're going to do is we're going to make our own paint. Have you ever done that before? Okay, well I am only 16 and I've never made it before either. This is my very first time. So what you're going to need today is you're going to need to have some flour. You're going to need to have some salt. You're going to need some water. You might want to have a sippy cup lid on it because that's what I sure need. Food coloring. Now you might want to get more than one color. I just brought green, but since you're making paint, what you can do is you can get some separate containers and you can maybe make a red color of paint, yellow, blue, green, whatever you pick, okay? And then I thought it would be fun if you get some different things that you could paint with. So like, do you think you could paint with a spoon? Could you paint with a fork? Could you paint with a straw? Could you paint with a paintbrush? How about a stick? How about your fingers? Toilet paper roll, you could probably make some shapes in the paint with that. And then you're gonna need some things that you can paint on. So remember I said I made a mess? So some of my paper I had to throw away because it got wet and soggy. So I only have one sheet of paper to paint on, but what are some things that you could paint on at home? Well, let's see here. First, again, you have to ask, but you could probably paint on a paper plate. You could find some things outside, maybe like a brick, a rock, things like that. Maybe if you have like an old t-shirt, maybe you could paint on that. Now this kind of paint, it's kind of thick, and it's not real smooth like paint that you probably normally use. Maybe if you ask mom and dad, you might be able to paint it on your driveway and then you could hose it off later, okay? Even though it's made with salt, water, and flour, it still probably doesn't taste very good, so I'm going to recommend that you don't taste it. And then add a little bit of extra water if you think it's too thick, okay? So we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, remember, like I said, you're going to want to have your table covered so that you don't make a mess like I did, okay? Make sure you have changed clothes in case you get water all over your pants like I did, okay? So the recipe says that you need to use equal parts. Now, do you guys know what equal parts means? So let's say like you're gonna make a sandwich for lunch and you're gonna have ham, but then you also wanna have turkey. So if you already have 2 pieces of ham on your sandwich and you also wanna have turkey, but you wanna have equal parts of both, if you have 2 pieces of ham, how many pieces of turkey would you need to make it equal? That's right, 2 pieces of turkey. So if you had 2 pieces of ham and 2 pieces of turkey, that makes it equal, right? Because they match. So for this recipe, you could make a huge, huge, huge recipe, or you can make a really, really small recipe. I'm gonna kind of make a small recipe since it's just me making the mess today. But it's up to you guys at home, okay? And again, you might wanna ask mom or dad how big of a recipe you wanna make. If you have brothers and sisters or friends over, you might wanna make your parts a little bit bigger than mine just so you have a lot of paint to share. So I have a 1/4 cup measuring cup, okay? Like I said, it depends on how big of a supply of paint you wanna make. And again, remember, you're using equal parts. So I'm gonna go ahead and start my recipe by getting a 1/4 cup of flour. So here's my 1/4 cup, and I'm gonna dump it into my bowl, just like so. Then I'm gonna take a 1/4 cup of salt and pour that into my bowl. And maybe if you just kind of want to watch me do it first, and then you can make yours at home, and then you might know maybe a 1/4 cup is enough for you. And here's that tricky cup that I spilled earlier. So I'm gonna measure up a quarter of a cup of water. I'm gonna dump that into my mixture. Now I left some extra water so that if I need to make this a little bit thinner or not so thick, I can add a little bit of water. And so then you're just gonna stir, okay? So stir, 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 and then like I said, in order to get your paint color, you're going to need food coloring. Now remember, food coloring is gonna make a what? It's gonna make a mess. So as long as you're prepared to be messy today, this is the place for you to be, okay? So I'm stirring, and if you can kind of see, it's kind of thick, right? Almost like oatmeal. So I personally am gonna add a little bit more water. And really, since this is your own paint, you can have it be however thick you want. So I added some more water, and I'm gonna stir it up. And I think I will go ahead and add a little bit of food coloring. So remember, food coloring is kind of like glue. Sometimes a little goes a long way. Just depends on what shade you want to make, right? So like I said, I only brought up green food coloring. It might be fun for you if you can have a couple other containers, or if you guys even just have like styrofoam cups at home, you can dish out some of the white paint that you start with, put it in separate containers, and then add your food coloring to all of the separate containers. That way maybe you can have like a whole rainbow of paint. All right. And if you have brothers and sisters, then that would give everybody a chance to stir their own paint, right? And then you guys could just share the colors at the end. All right, so it's getting not so thick anymore, right? And you just gotta keep stirring it, like I said, until you get it to be however thin for paint that you'd like it to be. And like I said, when you do start to paint with this, it's gonna feel kind of gritty from the salt that's in there, and that's fine. And it will dry. It just might take a little bit longer compared to regular paint to dry. Okay. I think this is good for me. So once you get your paint to the consistency that you like, we'll go ahead and start painting. So I'm gonna start with my paper plate, and let's see here. I think I'll go ahead and start with fork. Well, no, I'll start with paintbrush. Okay, so I'm just gonna get in here and take my paint. I'm just gonna paint the outside of the plate. Yeah, this is still thick. I think I might want it a little bit thinner for me, and I wanna put some more green in mine too. What are some things that I can make on my own with green? I can make a snake. I can make a tree. I can make a green monster. I could make a grasshopper. I'm sure there's a green fish, right? Okay, this is getting darker good. I like dark green. And if you don't like green, you don't have to make green at your house. Okay, so see if you can tell it's a little bit darker than it was, and I put more water in so it's not as thick. I'm just gonna stir it up. Oh, there we go, I like that shade better. Now what am I making on this plate? Don't really know. Just kind of playing around with the paint that I've made. Now, I think I'm gonna go ahead and try painting on paper, the only dry piece of paper that I have. And why do you say? Because remember I made a mess. Okay, let's see here. Maybe I'm gonna use this toilet paper holder. Dip it in, and see how it's all green around the outside? And look at that. You can make little circles with it. That means I can probably take this cup, dip it in, and let's see if that will make a big circle too. Perfect, look at this. Another big circle. How about a fork? What can I do with that? Dip it in here. Oh yeah. You can kind of drag it and see what it makes. Now what if I used a stick? Do you think I could paint with a stick? Well, let's check it out and see. So I put some paint on here, and now I'm just gonna drag it, and that works too. Look at that. Now what are some other things you think you can paint with? You could probably make your own paintbrush out of nature even. Like if you have a pine tree, maybe you could even just get leaves off a tree. maybe tape that around the end of a stick or something. You could use that for a paintbrush. Now this straw is really kind of like a coffee stirrer straw. So this is not really probably the most awesome thing to try to paint with, but see, you can put on some paint and just move it around on your paper. And like I said, you don't have to paint on paper. You could paint on anything that you're allowed to paint on. That's the key word, right? What you have permission to paint on. Messy Monday. So I'm gonna go ahead and get messy. Now again, you might wanna have permission to do this, but I'm gonna try to paint with my fingers. Okay, I'm gonna try just one finger at a time because I'm really brave. I'm gonna try to color in this circle that I made. Oh yeah. And I can feel how gritty it is in my fingers. It's kind of cool though. I might have really soft hands. It'll be like a manicure that I'm receiving today. Look at that, see how I'm filling in my circle with my homemade paint? So remember, I always say creativity is messy. I'm proof. I got paint on my fingers, water on the floor, water on the table, water on my clothes. Ugh. Now, to keep this paint so that it doesn't dry out, it won't last too long, but if you have little containers that you have lids to, you can keep it kind of fresh for a few days where it won't dry out for you if you put lids on it. And like I said, maybe if you don't want to paint outside, it's awfully nice outside today, you can maybe take your paint outside, paint items that you find outside, maybe even if you have a ball, like a bouncy ball or something, you could paint that. You could probably put your bouncy ball into the paint and then bounce it on the sidewalk or the driveway. And then, like I said, it'll dry up pretty quick in the sun today. And then if you have a hose, or even if you just fill up a bucket of water, you can dump that and it'll clear right off of your driveway or sidewalk. So what did you think? Was that fun, making our own paint? Pretty cool. Let's see if I can make a handprint. That'll be the last thing I try. We'll see. Now my hand, for being a 16-year-old, is pretty big compared to yours. I can't fit mine into that glass bowl that I use to make my paint recipe, but we'll go ahead and see what I'm doing here. Just gonna paint my whole hand here, and we'll see if I can make a handprint on my paper. My one lonely only piece of paper that I have, because I made a mess. Okay, so we'll go ahead and flip this over. Smash my hand down. Voila. Look at that. Handprint art I just made with my own paint. Pretty cool, huh? All right, so that was all we were gonna do for today, ArtVentures, but it was getting messy on a Monday. Wouldn't you agree? Do I look pretty messy? Can't show you the wetness on my pants because it won't show on camera, but trust me, I had a huge mess, okay? So recipe again is equal parts. So that means what? Equal parts means what? The same. So for example, if you're gonna use 1 cup of flour, that means you need 1 cup of salt and you need 1 cup of water. Now for your food coloring, however many drops of food coloring you wanna put in, because that just decides how dark it's going to be. And then you need to stir, stir, stir. And if it's still too thick for you, remember you can add some more water before you spill it, okay? All right, thanks for coming and watching Messy Monday. I hope you had fun making your own paint and making a big mess. Now Wednesday, if you want to join Wednesday, we will be painting nature. So if you made this paint, you could keep it for Wednesday and you could use your homemade paint or any kind of paint that you have at home. Now what I'm gonna try to do before Wednesday is I'm gonna take a walk outside, probably today because it's so nice out. I think I'm going to collect maybe a stick, maybe a branch, some leaves, some pine cones might be fun. If I could maybe find like a piece of bark from a tree, that would be kind of cool to paint on. Acorns maybe. Really anything that you can find in nature. Grass, I guess you could get grass, but that's probably gonna be kind of hard to paint because grass is pretty tiny, right? I would say no bugs. We don't want to paint any live creatures, right? So just things that maybe you can collect that don't breathe, right? So just nature items like leaves, rocks would be a good idea. I would say not dirt, that would be kind of hard to paint. So let's stick with rocks, bricks, pieces of concrete. Maybe if there's a broken sidewalk somewhere, maybe, like I said, bark from a tree, things like that. So no bugs, but bring your homemade paint or have paint and a paintbrush and some things in nature to paint, and we'll do that together on Wednesday. Thanks for coming to ArtVentures. I'll see you later. Bye.